The Secrets of Star Trek is brought to you by the Star Quest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek episode 168.
Captain to bridge.
Spock here.
Make it so. Surrender is not an option.
Attention crew of the Enterprise, this is James Kirk.
We are all explorers, driven to know what's over the horizon, what's beyond our own shores.
We would have helped you get home if you had asked. That's who Starfleet is.
Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Star Trek, where we discuss the hidden layers and deeper meanings found in all the Star Trek TV series, movies, and more. And today we're discussing the next episode, the latest episode of Star Trek Lower Decks Season 2, called Kayshon, His Eyes Open. And joining me today on the panel are Father Cory Sticha. Hi, Father Cory.
How's it going, Dom?
Very well, thanks. And Jimmy Akin. Hi, Jimmy.
Howdy, Dom.
Folks, be sure to share the podcast with your friends. Help us grow this community of listeners that we have, and we want to reach more folks with our fun and hopefully entertaining discussions of Star Trek. And I want to tell you about another show that you will definitely enjoy on the Star Quest Network called The Secrets of Doctor Who, where Jimmy, Father Cory, and I discuss Doctor Who, classic and new, from the 1965 all the way up to present day and whatever the future holds. There is a lot of interesting things coming and changes in Doctor Who, and we talk about it all. So give us a listen over there at sqpn.com/Doctor Who or wherever you find podcasts. And be sure to stick around to the end of the episode. We do have a little bit of listener feedback that we want to share with you. But first, let's talk about Kayshon, His Eyes Open. Jimmy, could you give us a recap of this episode?
The Cerritos, after the funeral of the Collector. Kayshon, his hand becomes a puppet. Mariner and Jet in conflict. Tendi and Rutherford to the rescue.
No Boimler? No Boimler?
Boimler beside himself. And I made up all that on the spot because it hadn't occurred to me to do so before. But to give a straightforward English presentation of the plot, the Cerritos has been assigned to help inventory the collection of a professional galactic collector who has died and also defuse any dangerous galactic treasures he has in his collection. Captain Freeman assigns the new security chief, Lieutenant Kayshon, a Temerian who often speaks in literary allusions, to take the lower deckers over to the collector's ship to do the inventory. But Lieutenant Kayshon is almost immediately turned into a hand puppet by a security device. I mean, a literal hand puppet, leaving the lower deckers to deal with the situation on their own. Mariner comes into conflict with another crewman, Jet Manhaver, who will lead the team. So they're both like in a leadership tug of war. Both Mariner's plan and Manhaver's plan end up not working, so the two finally decide to listen to Rutherford and Tendi instead of just telling them what to do. Rutherford and Tendi then are encouraged to actually think about the situation they're in, and they come up with a way to save the day. Meanwhile, on the Titan, Boimler is assigned to a dangerous away mission on a planet, and his covert team is being pursued by dangerous, if verbally challenged, Pakleds, the new main villain on Lower Decks. They're kind of our new Klingons/Romulans, and as comedy versions, they work. The facility that Boimler's team has to infiltrate is protected by a force shield, but Boimler realizes there is a way to beam through it and to escape the dangerous, verbally challenged Pakleds. All of the team gets away, but Boimler accidentally is cloned by the transporter. So one Boimler stays on the Titan and the other goes back to the Cerritos, effectively hitting the reset button to the beginning or to the end of last season.
Right. The end. Mm-hmm. Yes. We'll talk more about that as we get to it. I want to kind of mention right off the bat, they have communal sonic showers in this one. Yes, they go there in this episode.
Yeah, but because they're sonic showers, the images are blurry,
Right.
So you don't see
exactly.
anything.
Everything is blurred out. Thankfully.
And this is like only the second time we've seen a sonic shower. It's our most extensive ever. I mean, in Star Trek: The Motion Picture, we saw Lieutenant Ilea sort of having a sonic shower,
Right.
But we saw her coming out of it, but I don't recall seeing the action of the shower. But here we do.
Yeah, we did in Voyager. Janeway stepped underneath one after, and they had the special effect of the dirt lifting off of her as she's standing under it.
Oh, yeah. So how would a sonic shower work? Because Jet and Mariner have this battle over turning up the power of the showers until they're getting nosebleeds. It's so intense.
Yeah. Well, so I don't think sonic showers really would work in a way that would, I mean, basically it's using sound to lift dirt and other stuff off your skin to clean you.
Yeah.
And so it would be some kind of ultrasound thing that would do that. But my suspicion is in order to do that in the real world, you would have to like turn up the juice so much you would be getting nosebleeds at a minimum.
Right. Yeah. I guess it was always an interesting way of not using water in space.
And it's a sci-fi trope. It shows up in various different franchises and novels and stuff because it's a way of water conservation in space.
Right. Yeah.
And Enterprise did show that they had actual water showers because there was the scene early on where Archer is in the shower and the grav plating fails as he's in the shower. But that's, other than that, they've done the sonic shower routine.
Okay. I like the fact we have Tamarian in this, one of the children of Tama from the Darmok episode.
Yep.
And I like that he's learned enough Federation standard, i.e. English, that he can speak normally and only occasionally lapses into the literary allusions, which they call metaphors. They're literary allusions that I guess you're using metaphorically. And that's a very popular episode.
Yes.
And it was very well done, and I'm glad that they're bringing in a character. He's the new security chief, like I said, so he's Shax's replacement.
Right.
I wondered if he was voiced by the same actor, but I didn't think to look that up.
I will look.
One of the things that's interesting about the Children of Tama is they show up in some, in various Star Trek novels, what are sometimes called beta canon. And in those, apparently to help build a bridge between our culture and theirs so we could have a common language because they just think differently than we do. We gave them a bunch of Earth literature. And they've also fleshed out like how children in their culture learn and how their number and engineering system works and stuff. But to build this bridge, we gave them a bunch of our literature, including the Bible. And so they would start using literary allusions from the Bible. So you could have things like Lazarus at his tomb or Jesus at the Ascension or things like that.
Interesting. By the way, Carl Tart voiced Kayshon, so not Fred Tatasciore.
Okay.
Who did Shaq? But Kayshon was it's one of those things with animation that they feel more free to do these sorts of things to bring in these elements from other Star Trek. The stuff that we love from Star Trek.
Including the really big one I can't wait to talk about.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Literally really big, but we'll get there.
Yeah.
So you mentioned like this battle between Mariner and Jet. We saw Jet last season as was he a romantic interest with Mariner then, wasn't he? They went on a date. I kind of trying to remember where we saw him. But anyway.
Well, wasn't he part of one of the other teams?
Right.
So like there was one episode where they ran into one of the other teams, the Gamma. Because
Gamma Shift,
like the Gamma Shift or something like that.
In this one, he says, I got transferred to Beta Shift, which is apparently what our regular lower deckers are.
Right. And Mariner sees herself sort of as the unofficial leader of Beta Shift. And,
right. Yep.
And so Jet sort of challenges her for that, as you said. So let's talk about the collector. By the way, we saw a collector in TNG where he
most toys.
Yes, he collected data, and they actually bring that up. In fact, the collectors, there's a collectors guild, and they all tried to collect data at one point or another.
Yeah, I like the bridge crew discussing that. It's like they all tried to collect data. Why won't they leave data alone?
Yeah. Well, they kind of hung a lantern too, because of course the immediate question as soon as you hear a collector and his collection is like, oh, is this the one that tried to collect data?
Right.
So they immediately ask that question right on screen.
Right. They bring it up, and the whole episode has a feel of one of those. What was it? I forget what channel had this, but there was a show called The Storage Wars, where you had people bidding on abandoned bidding on abandoned storage lockers, storage units, and it kind of has that feel of like, and then they would go in and they would bid on it and they would find whatever treasures are found inside, and this was clearly an homage to that sort of show.
I hadn't thought of that. It felt to me like an escape room.
Well, yeah, it was that too.
You're trapped in a room and you got to figure out how do we get out.
And it's because it's a collection. This is the ultimate Easter egg episode. Like there are Easter eggs in every corner of the screen in every scene, and it'll be too many to go all through them. But there are some we can.
I'm sure Memory Alpha will eventually have a list of them all.
I know.
You look at the references list, and it's like 20 lines long.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, there's and some of them are kind of like bizarre. Like they make up like there's a Klingon reproduction helmet, but then there's like the Excalbian an Excalbian carcass, like a fossil. I can't say really skeleton because they're rock creatures, but there's also the skeleton of Abraham Lincoln from the same episode, the Space Lincoln. And of course, Jimmy, what you were referencing, the other skeleton.
The skeleton of Spock 2.
Right.
From
Super
the
Spock.
animated series, from the Infinite Vulcan. So those clones did wear out, which is why we had Dr. Caniclius 5.
Right.
So Spock 2 wore out, and we've got his skeleton in the collection still wearing his giant blue science shirt.
So I should mention, we've talked about that episode. We've recorded that episode already. It has not released yet. That will be coming up after the season.
It was actually the last episode we recorded before Lower Decks started, so it will be very, very shortly after Lower Decks.
Yeah, it was very recent for us. So in the animated series episode, The Infinite Vulcan, it's kind of a riff on Spock's brain, except they don't just take the brain, they clone the entire Spock and make a giant copy
Spock
of him. And so in this episode, they've got the giant Spock skeleton still wearing a torn piece of his big piece of his blue science shirt, which also got cloned apparently, and it's hanging from the ceiling like a big whale skeleton or something.
Right.
And then it comes crashing down, and they're actually inside the giant Spock skeleton defending themselves for a segment of the show
against like levitating Roombas, like a whole army of levitating armed Roombas.
I love Mariner's line, they're going to suck us to death. But they never say this is what this is. You have to recognize it from knowledge of the animated series.
That is one of the best parts of Lower Decks, is that it doesn't just tell you everything. Like it sort of relies on the fact that you're going to sort of know what is going on. Like you're a Star Trek fan if you watch Lower Decks, and so you're gonna know a lot of this stuff. You're gonna have watched the animated series, and you're gonna have like this background knowledge. And that's one of the things I love about this.
And if you haven't, there's still enough there. You can follow the main plot and enjoy it. But these are Easter eggs in the true sense. If you know what they are, they will add value, but they're not essential to understanding what's happening.
Right.
And when you watch, there's especially in these collection rooms, there are going to be all kinds of little Easter eggs hidden that they won't mention. They're just sitting in a cage, and you just kind of pass by it.
Right.
And if you know what you're looking for, you'll find them,
I was tempted, like we mentioned, I was tempted to kind of go back and look through them all, but I'm like, that is a large effort to go through all that.
I did see a list online. I'll have to go back and find it, but I did see a list online where someone had done that.
Okay.
Yeah. I decided I'm just going to watch this and enjoy it. I'm not going to obsess about everything in
Yep.
the background.
Exactly.
The Spock skeleton was hard to miss.
There was also a case of Chateau Picard wine. I remember that. There was a Betazoid gift box. I remember seeing that. There was some other things. There was like I said, a ton of stuff. You could go to the Memory Alpha and look at the references list, and you'll see all kinds of stuff there.
So one of the aspects of this is they say right up front that the collector who has died, like other collectors, is going to have many dangerous galactic treasures in his collection. So the Collectors Guild has asked Starfleet to help them inventory this collection and defuse any dangerous items that it's certain to contain. And so when they get there with the new security chief Kayshon, there's another rival collector who's there as a representative of the guild to monitor all of this, and he ends up setting off a security device that animates a painting of the collector who died, and it's like, aha, if you are seeing this animated painting, I must be dead, therefore you are raiding my collection, therefore I'm going to turn you into a hand puppet, which then happens.
Right.
Kayshon gets turned into a literal hand puppet, which they then have to keep with them through the rest of the episode. And the question is, how are we going to get out of here? Because now that the security system is activated, it's becoming unsafe for the lower deckers, and Mariner wants to battle their way to the engine room and shut off the power.
Right.
And Jet is like, actually, why don't we just use the escape pods and go back over to our own ship? And Rutherford and Tendi are kind of like, yeah, that's kind of more in keeping with our training.
Right.
And I love it. I love it. For once, it's like, yes, we don't have to do the ridiculous overdramatic thing. Let's just get out of this dangerous situation and figure out how to deal with it when we're not in danger.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I love the shuttle pods plan, but of course it doesn't work.
Well, and meanwhile, Captain Freeman back on the Cerritos, she would normally be checking in with them, but she just got her captain's evaluation, like her employee evaluation, which said she's a micromanager. And so she's like going to be like, I'm going to be the opposite. I am not a micromanager, and I will show you. I will going to give them a free hand and not check in with them at all, which is precisely the opposite of what she should be doing. Yeah.
The one time that she really should be checking in with them and recognizing, hey, we don't have comms connection with them right now.
Right. So yeah. And then there's the typical, like, having to battle your way through this terrible, each room, which are different ways trying to kill them. And they end up, like you said, Jimmy, having to come up with an alternative way that isn't Jet and Mariner fighting against each other. Like Mariner's not taking things seriously, Jet taking things very by the book, and Tendi and Rutherford have to be the ones to sort of save the day by saying, look, let's just work together and come up with this plan.
Well, actually, the way they set that up is Jet and Mariner together realize we haven't worked. I mean, we haven't, as leaders, both of us have failed. And we're just, this tug of war is not productive. Let's get some new eyes on the situation. Hey, Tendi and Rutherford, what do you think?
Yes. Yep. And they're like, oh, you're asking us?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, here's a plan. I
really thought about it before. We were just obeying you. But here's an idea. Yeah,
which involves, melting down the bones of the Excalbion, which are extremely corrosive, and then cutting a hole through the bulkhead so they can get through into a maintenance shaft and bypass all the security things and getting to the escape pods more easily. Now, did they ever get Kayshon back to himself?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So we get a scene in Medbay where Dr. Ta'ana is talking about him, and they've got him like on a bio bed as a hand puppet. And so they have the little hand puppet on a bio bed. Yeah. And Dr. Ta'ana is saying, this isn't my first guy got turned into a doll situation. He'll be fine in an hour.
Yeah.
And then he is fine in an hour. He's like in the bar trying to chat up a lady.
That's right.
Apparently these puppet rays are not uncommon in the future.
Yes. I like the sign that they had him on him in the medbay. Please don't play with the security puppet.
Yeah.
So of course the bird psychologist starts playing with it.
Yes, as a counselor. This would be very helpful in my counseling sessions. The puppet.
Hey, read the sign.
So let's talk about the Boimler situation. So he's on the Titan under Will Riker, and there's these three other officers. Boimler is just overwhelmed by everything and the constant battling and they're at war with the Packlet all the time. And these three other officers are very, very aggressive, very warlike, and kind of mocking the Enterprise as being so so frou-frou, and they even had string quartet concerts over there. Oh my goodness, that is so silly. We have it much better here. And Boimler's like, I would kind of like actually have a string quartet concert every once in a while.
Explore,
right? And there comes a point where he admits,
which actually calls back to last season when we saw him playing his bass violin.
Right, that's true. And at one point when they're undercover on this planet trying to escape from the Packlet, he admits, like, I joined Starfleet to explore, not for all this fighting that we're doing. And I wonder, is that a critique of more modern Trek shows, which have focused so much on conflict and less on exploration?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a meta comment about the overall trajectory of Star Trek, not necessarily criticizing it, but giving vent to the giving voice to the sentiments of a significant segment of Star Trek fandom.
Yeah,
and it was a critique in DS9, especially during the Dominion War, where it became more about the war than it did any kind of exploration or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah. So we can have
not to the level of modern, not to the level modern day Trek by any stretch of the imagination.
Like Discovery and Picard, which were not at all about really discovery and exploration. Although that's been the promise that we're supposed to get with Strange New Worlds, is it's going to be much more traditional Star Trek, episodic exploration. So I thought that was an interesting little bit of critique. And what I liked about it was those three very aggressive warlike officers all kind of admitted, I kind of like that too. Hey, that's why I joined too.
Yeah. One of them, and they were all supposedly, or at least several of them were supposedly on the Enterprise D, which Boimler refers to as the D. The D. One of them is a lady with this like greenish blue face with like a purple slash over half of her part of her face. Yeah. And I don't know what species she is or what that is. I mean, it could be makeup, but I think we're meant to understand that's what her species looks like. Right. I'm sure she was never on. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure none of these characters, especially her, were ever actually seen on Star Trek: The Next Generation. But I thought that was a very interesting look for her, and I couldn't quite place it.
Interesting. Yeah. I just looked her up. She was voiced by Vanessa Marshall, who voiced Hera on Rebels. Yes. And now Bad Batch, and was interviewed by Secrets of Star Wars.
Yes, she was interviewed by the Secrets of Star Wars guys. Vanessa Marshall. Awesome. That's really cool. She's such a good voice actor. She's a recognizable voice, but very good. So Boimler ends up. So they set it up. It's the same sort of distortion field that also caused Will Riker in a TNG episode to get
second chances.
Yes, to end up with Thomas Riker. His clone, his transporter clone, and so we end up with the same thing with Boimler, who his clone, transporter clone, who takes on the name William in honor of Will.
Sucking up.
Very much sucking. And it's so funny because that Boimler suddenly, because his personality changes. He's confident. He's much more in line with the sort of officers that stay on the Titan.
He fakes out the other Boimler because it's Riker announces, okay, Starfleet regulations prevent us from having two identical crew members. Right. It's like, really? Okay. Yeah. Does that extend to identical twins? Maybe. But I love that they have that regulation. It makes no sense, but I love that they have it. And so one of them has to has to go back to the Cerritos as an ordinary ensign because they don't have room for a lieutenant on the Cerritos.
Yeah.
And so it's a demotion. And the two Boimlers look at each other and nod, and then one of them steps forward.
Yes.
The other doesn't. It's like, what was that nod? And it's like, yeah, I just thought I'm fine here.
The transporter clone wants to stay in. The original is the one that steps forward.
Yes, that was yeah. So he ends up. So we knew Boimler would end up back on the Cerritos at some point. He had to be.
As soon as they mentioned this beaming shield, it's like, oh, we're going to have a Thomas Riker situation, and that's going to be how we get back. And I love that. That's awesome.
And I hope that we have a future episode where we see clone of Boimler show up again.
William Boimler.
William Boimler.
Yeah, Bill Boimler.
Yep.
So, yep. So that, he seems much cooler than Brad Boimler, and that should be an interesting when the other lower deckers encounter him eventually. That should be an interesting encounter and how they.
Oh, they should totally have Bill Boimler come and like go full evil twin and replace Brad Boimler and let the lower deckers deal with it.
That should be interesting.
Well, I love the conversation as Brad Boimler is leaving the ship. Do you think we'll ever see him again? Of course we will. We got his transporter clone here. Oh yeah.
We'll see him every time we're at lunch.
But I just love that as the solution because it's a great solution to the how do we get Boimler reunited.
Yeah,
with the lower deckers because he needs to come back, but this was also his dream to get promoted to the Titan, and so it's a great solution to that would only happen in something like Star Trek. So I think it's an awesome solution, as is the explanation that has long befuddled obsessive Star Trek fans. Why do officers sometimes have the wrong number of pips for their rank on their uniforms?
That's right.
And we get the answer to that at the end of the episode in the, I don't know, it's not a mess hall. It's sort of a bar cafeteria.
Like the
mess
version
hall.
of 10 Forward that they have, I guess.
The lounge or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Where they're eating corn.
Street corn.
And it turns out it's really easy to get just an extra piece of corn stuck to your collar, and that can explain the mysteriously inaccurate numbers of pips.
All I know is that the next time we have corn on the cob here at my house, I'm going to be a captain. That's for sure.
There you go.
So, and then, so Boimler shows up and they're very excited to talk to him. And he's there. I'm trying to think of there was another, I think it's about does it, I guess, for that episode. Yeah, there is the Kayshon trying to talk to uses his pickup line, which annoys the woman at the bar, and he just says, "Well, shaka when the walls fell."
Yeah.
So, Father Cory, last notes on this episode?
So Boimler, as he's talking to the lower deckers, he's back on the Cerritos, and he's got this great line that really, let's be honest, describes a lot of Star Trek plots. It was a bunch of complex characters thrown into heavily serialized battles, which always ended in mind-blowing twists and made me question the basic tenets of my reality.
That pretty much describes a lot of Star Trek episodes. That's right.
It was such a great, and he just rattles it off that quickly.
Yes. Jimmy, how about you? Any other notes? All right. So I did promise some listener feedback. Dennis Tremethick wrote on Facebook about our last episode, 167, Strange Energies. He offered a correction. In that episode, what was the name of the character? Stevens, the one who was sucking up to Ransom, was reading him to him in sickbay from a book, Nightingale Woman, singular. And we had misremembered where it was from. It was actually from the episode Where No Man Has Gone Before, where Gary Mitchell was reading it to Dr. Daner in sickbay.
Which makes it even more appropriate since this is heavily influenced by, this episode was heavily influenced by Where No Man Has Gone Before.
Right.
There is discussion of poetry, though, in City on the Edge of Forever, which was the source of the confusion, where Kirk's talking to Edith Keeler about it.
Yes. So thank you, Dennis, for the correction. That was helpful.
Let me help.
Yes, one of the most famous lines ever. So we'd like to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create Secrets of Star Trek, including Joseph P., George G., Caleb B., EC, and Christian R. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Star Trek and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. We'd love to hear what you thought of Kayshon, His Eyes Open. You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/trek or our Facebook page at facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to trek@sqpn.com. And we'll be back next time when we'll be discussing the next episode of Lower Decks, which is heretofore unnamed as far as I know. Until then, Father Cory Sticha, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Star Trek.
Thank you, Dom.
Jimmy Akin, thank you as well.
Mirab with sails unfurled. Jesus on the Mount of Ascension.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Star Trek on StarQuest. And remember, Rapunky when he joined the Seven.